Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss how the vocally pro-Brexit Wetherspoons pub chain boss Tim Martin is now calling for the government to relax immigration rules because his precious Brexit has, not for the first time, knackered his business. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news in politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So it's another one where a Brexiteer has decided they don't actually like the taste of their Brexit cake. Tim Martin, for those who don't know, it's not just that rare breed of pro-Brexit businessman. He was aggressively so. So much so that I now boycott his pubs, which I used to frequent quite a bit in the past. Not because the boss is pro-Brexit. You know, I'll use businesses owned by people with different political views. It's just as well, or I might have to get used to living in a cave. But Martin was so obnoxious about it. Like, he toured his own pubs ranting about the EU to bemused customers, ramming the places with anti-EU propaganda. Quite frankly, it's not a comfortable place to be unless you are a raging gammon. You know, I boycott Wetherspoons because he made his establishments shrines to Brexit. And just to emphasise his inhuman qualities, during the first wave of the pandemic last year, Martin initially refused to furlough his staff. See, he's not just pro-Brexit but pro-virus as well, and was dead against lockdown. So rather than let the government pay for his staff to keep their jobs through the lockdown, Martin threw a strop and tried to just dismiss them all until it backfired. But this is the attitude of hospitality bosses all too often. Because bar work is unskilled, you know, they've been used for a long time to just being able to hire whenever they need it. Oh, you don't like the way I treat my employees? Well, stop being one of my employees then, because there's loads more where you came from. But Martin is now struggling to find staff. Interesting timing, really, as I was just talking about the hit to hospitality that Brexit has dealt this week. An industry that relies upon a lot of migrant workers has fallen foul of a combination of self-defeating new immigration rules and an environment pervading the country now that is often hostile to people, especially foreigners. So over the past year, Martin has been throwing a strop because he couldn't get customers because of the pandemic. Now he can't get staff because of Brexit. So as he realised the pitfalls in Brexit and apologised for his earlier support, has he signed up to Remainer now to stand before the circle of sanity like a recovering alcoholic to face up to his past and move towards a brighter, happier future amongst his fellow man? Now, don't be daft. He's calling for what he terms a liberal immigration system controlled by those we have elected. He says this would make it distinct from the EU system. Not sure what EU system he's talking about. Reading the article about this in the also pro-Brexit Telegraph, he seemed to think the EU handled our visa system when we were in the EU. All EU member states handled their own immigration. This is why different members have different rules. If it didn't, if it was all controlled centrally by the EU, immigration rules would be the same in every single EU country. There were many myths about EU immigration. All of the rules of the EU are basically tied to free trade within the single market, essentially freedom of movement. Because, of course, how can you have free trade if you're not actually free to trade? But that's the freedom to move around and live or trade where you wish. You know, when you ask Brexiteers about immigration and you focus down on what is it you've got a problem with, they never seem to say that they're opposed to people just coming here and living here, or people coming here and working here. The fact of the matter is we had a liberal immigration system, all of our own, for years. It was much more open than that of other EU countries because we had a need for migrant workers. Tim Martin even talks about the reasons for this in this article. You know, he seems to understand at least something of why we don't actually have enough homegrown workers in the UK. And don't get me wrong, I've said this before, I do get why some people are confused. Because the way that you'll think, if you don't think it through, you'll just think to yourself, well, we've got British citizens that are unemployed in this country, right? So we've got people who want jobs, right? How is it possible that we need foreign workers to do any work at all under these circumstances? It doesn't make sense. How can you say we've got people wanting work and we've got vacancies we can't fill? Doesn't make sense, especially unskilled work. I do get how it's confusing if you do not think it through, but unskilled work doesn't mean easy work. and not everyone can do every available job. I might also wonder if our level of unemployment is all that high. Certainly there are other major economies in Europe where it's much worse. Problem is, there aren't actually comparable figures. It should be just an easy case of looking up comparable figures. You can look up tables, but the problem is because each country defines it differently. Like our government, for example, is happy to say that someone who doesn't earn on a regular basis at all, never mind earning living wages, don't actually earn at all, but they've got a 0 hours contract, so you've got a job then. You're employed. Other countries may define employment as having an actual job that pays reliable wages. So apples and pears. But even with the fiddle, I still think we have, I know we have quite low unemployment if you compare to many other countries in Europe, which is why we need more workers than most. But anyway, back to Tim the Muppet Martin, and never mind the language about, we need a liberal immigration system controlled by the government, because that's a contradiction. The gammons will go, yeah, that sounds fine. That sounds, controlled by our government. Yeah, anything like that's fine. If it's liberal, it is by definition not controlled as such. Martin is basically complaining that people who might want to come here to work are being blocked by our restrictive immigration rules now. What is he suggesting? That he just, anyone that wants to come and work for him, he just passes a note to the Home Office. They go, yeah, that's fine. And that's their control. What he's essentially saying is we should have an immigration system that means anyone can travel here freely if it's for work. But that's all the EU rules ever required of us. Anything further was our own affair. So he wants us to go back to freedom of movement for economic purposes. Anything else he tries to say is just a vague attempt to pretend that Brexit is great, apart from all the things that aren't great. The article also quoted someone from the City Pub Group. It actually quoted quite a few people in the hospitality industry, but this particular guy was saying that some places were so short of staff they weren't able to open at lunchtime. So basically what seems to be happening here is, as our lockdown is eased back, you've got limited staff, so pubs and restaurants can't open as much as they used to, so they just leave the quieter periods and focus their resources on busier times. But that's then going to mean, the few people who do go at lunchtimes or some other times, not going to find anywhere. If you can't get the staff, it's what you have to do. And when tales abound of EU citizens coming to the UK recently for work and being treated like criminals, not just subject to different immigration rules, that's just the consequence of leaving the EU. But going as far as fingerprinting, having passports and medicines withheld, detained without charge, that message gets around. It's going to be increasingly difficult to persuade casual EU hospitality workers to return after the pandemic. Someone says, should we go to the UK to do some pub work this summer? Well, I don't know, you might get locked up. You'll be fingerprinted. They'll take your passport off you. Should we just go and work in Belgium instead? Now, if you want a Brexit benefit here, could be that the staff who remain might get a better deal. See, the issue with hospitality work is most of it is poorly paid and you are not valued. I'm not saying there aren't good bosses. I know that there are good bosses, but there are plenty of bad ones. And a boss just thinks they can break you, toss you into the bin and hire someone else the next day. Baptism of fire. They hire you one day, you fail badly, right, get gone, I'll hire someone else the next day. Now, if staff shortages are a thing and the workers in the industry realise this, well, they can expect better treatment. Perhaps even that they are paid properly. And the bad bosses will find themselves with the worst of the staff shortages. That's those market forces that the likes of Martin profess to love. I'd like to see how much he regards them when his profits are hit again. Bear in mind, he'd already taken a hit to his profits in 2019, before the pandemic. He blamed Remainers for that. Not sure if he thought it was down to not just myself boycotting his pubs, but if that is what was happening, maybe he should have reflected on the fact that he made his pubs a hostile environment for Europhiles. Putting off your customers isn't a great way to get customers. I wonder how long it will take for him to blame rejoiners for not getting enough staff. But yes, I have immense sympathy for many hospitality bosses, even if they were in favour of Brexit, as long as they're facing up to the consequences now. But Tim Martin deserves and will get none of my sympathy. He treats his employees with callous disregard. He has worked tirelessly to weaken our country, and even now that his returning chickens are roosting his profits away, he's still aggressively whining about the EU when it is he and this Brexit government that have screwed his business over. And I hope that if the industry is to suffer shortages long term, that his workers ply their trade at other establishments. Because when you're in a shortage industry, you can demand better treatment at the very least. And I hope people exercise that power. Because the government won't be changing their immigration policies just because Martin is whining about it. The article quoted the government as saying we should just focus on training British workers. Oh yeah, nice one. Why didn't the industry think of that? Do they think pubs are turning away British workers or something? Do they think Tim Martin's whining because there's not enough Polish bar staff? No, he can't get staff at all. But that's how this government is. Oh, you can't trade with Europe? Well, just trade with Asia instead. Oh, you can't get any job applications. Well, make it clear that you will consider employing British workers. I mean, they're obviously confused. Can't even be bothered to work out whether these statements are born of crass stupidity or just deliberately obtuse anymore. But what they are is the government pinning the blame for the economic decline caused by their Brexit dogma right onto business owners. And that even includes pro-Brexit business owners like Martin. Do you hear that, Tim Martin? Even the government are saying your problems are your fault. Do as they advise and just train more British workers and your problems will be solved. Easy, Nespa. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.